the chairman of the board. This proceeding is being video recorded, so I'd remind everyone that they must ensure that their microphone is on and that you must speak into your microphone because it's the only place you'll be heard. The quorum, the board size is 5 people, and we have, which includes the chair, and we have 5 people seated. Starting from my left, I'll ask each member to please state their name for the record.
Jeremy Hooper.
Matt Jones.
Sonia Rothstein.
Paul Roberts.
Thank you. And then we'll review the agenda. Agenda's posted on the screen, and then the screen's in front of you. The first thing we'll go through shortly is the minutes, and then we've got one public hearing, and then we have some administrative general business to handle at the end.
Chairman, if I could just interject.
Sure.
I would ask that the chairman and the board consider a reorganization of the agenda and take up the board organizational items first, followed by the adoption of the 24 meeting schedule, and then move into minutes and the public hearing, mainly because the board organizational items include the seating of the 5 primary members as well as the election of a vice chair. So before we get into a public hearing, I feel like that would be prudent in case there's a need for the chairman to step out or to make sure that we have it officially on the record, the 5 that will be adjudicating the public hearing decision. This is staff recommendation.
Okay. Anybody have any issue with that?
Sounds good.
Consent is what it requires. We will then start out with the two issues at the end of that, and those are under general business. The first one is the approval. Well, first I want to do the minutes. We'll do the minutes, and then we'll come down to the rest of it. So let's do the minutes first. Everybody get a copy of or see the minutes for October 5th. Are there any corrections? Not much to them. Motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2023 regular meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Those approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Those disapprove, say nay. Minutes have been approved. Okay. The next we will go into then will be the approval of the 24 minutes, the 24 meeting schedule. That schedule we just saw a few minutes ago. Anybody have any questions about the scheduling? It's the same schedule we looked at before. Somebody make a motion to approve. Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those who approve, say aye.
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 Those that disapprove, say nay. Motion, or the dates are approved. The other thing we have on there is the Board of Organizational Items, and that comes down to who's going to be on the board, and I'm going to let.
Point of order, do we, is Sonia a permanent member? Do we need to seat Sonia today?
Currently, she's not.
I move to seat Sonia Rothstein as a voting member of the Board of Adjustments for the regular meeting of December 7th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
Please, question. Are we seating Sonia as a permanent member going forward or for today's? For tonight, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion's carried. Sonia's seated tonight. Okay. You want to go over that? Floor.
So understood we need to fill a vice chair seat. I'm interested.
I would like to make a motion.
Motion?
Can I make a motion that we nominate, or I would like to nominate Matt Jones as vice chairman of the Board of Adjustment?
Motion's made. Seconded. Do you accept the motion?
I do.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion's carried. So we have that. Now we have one seat to fill, is that correct?
Correct. I would move to seat Sonia Rothstein as a permanent member of the Board of Adjustments.
Second.
Seat, seconded. Any discussion? Do you accept the nomination? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried. Sonia, you're a permanent member. Thank you. And that should solve that problem. Is there anything else that we need to go through particularly?
I believe that takes care of the organizational items for the year. Your statements or affirmations with the ethics policy, et cetera, that we just did with the other meeting will transfer as your membership as a joint membership as P and Z and BOA members. So we have our 5 primary members seated for the 2024 calendar year, as well as chair and vice chair. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other issues in that area? Okay, let's move on then. Then we will go back to now our main purpose for being here today. Next on the agenda is a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive testimony for a variance request from Pinehurst Development Ordinance, Section 9.13, fences, walls, columns, subsection C, for the property addressed as 80 Carolina Vista, further identified as Moore County PID 000-25808. This property is located within the H, which is Hotel Zoning District. Specifically, the owner Resorts of Pinehurst, is requesting a variance to increase the height of the fence from 6 foot to 8 foot along Highway 5. As to the hearing, any party withstanding may appear in person or by attorney at the hearing. The chair shall direct the hearing. The village staff shall present staff report, which shall become part of the record. The applicant or the applicant's attorney shall present arguments in support of the application. Either persons withstanding opposed to granting the application to the attorney shall present arguments against the application. Both sides will be permitted to present rebuttal to opposing testimony at the discretion of the chair. And any presentation on behalf of either an applicant or a party withstanding who is not a natural citizen must be made by an attorney. And that may be an issue, but we'll deal with that if we have to. Motion to adjourn. Need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and enter the public hearing.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn the regular meeting and enter a public hearing.
Just for clarification, maybe just recess regular meeting and enter the public hearing. Thank you.
Yes, the regular meeting. Adjourn was the wrong word, sorry. And we enter a public hearing.
Okay? Second? Sonia seconded it? Okay. Starting at my right, I'd ask each member of the board to please state their name and provide notice of any ex parte communications.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we did not vote on the last.
Oh, I'm sorry. All approve?
Aye.
Nay? Anybody? No? Okay, thank you. Passes. Thank you
No
for
problem. Sorry to-
catching that. No, that's all right, please. Okay. Starting my right, I'd ask the member of the board to please state their name and provide the notice of any ex parte communications regarding this issue that I read just a moment ago, including any visits to the site that you may have made. And it may be none, or if you've visited the site, you would just so state. Or if you've come up with any other ex parte communications. Is there questions about what ex parte is? I'm going to make sure everybody understands that first.
Paul Roberts, have had no communications in regards to this, and I have visited the site.
Okay.
Sonia Rothstein, no ex parte, and I have visited the site.
Okay.
Matt Jones, no ex parte communications, and I have visited the site.
Okay. Tom Schroeder, no ex parte communications, and I have not visited the site.
Jeremy Hooper, no ex parte communications, and I have visited the site plenty of times, but none within the time frame of this application.
Okay, thank you. All right, move on to staff presentation. I'd first like to swear in the staff. So if the two staff members being sworn in, will please stand, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I do.
Please state your names.
Alex Cameron. Michael Mandeville.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Good evening. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started here. So we're obviously at the Board of Adjustments here. Here's the agenda. We no need to go through this again, but there's the agenda for today. So this is first public hearing tonight. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive testimony for a variance request from the Pinehurst Development Ordinance, Section 9.13, fences, walls, and columns, subsection C, for the property addressed as 80 Carolina Vista, further identified by Moore County PID number 000258808. This property is located within the H, which is the hotel zoning district. Specifically, the owner, Resorts of Pinehurst, are requesting a variance to increase the fence height from 6 feet to 8 feet with interspersed brick columns up to 9 feet 8 inches along Highway 5. Additionally, this fence would vary from the fence design standards provided in the Pinehurst Development Ordinance, PDO, by adding specific trim detail at the top of the fence. Fences are defined in the PDO as structures of 18 inches or taller, used to delineate a boundary or as a barrier or means of protection, confinement, screening, or as an aesthetic component of landscaping. We're going through the evidentiary hearing process. Requests for variances are quasi-judicial decisions which require an evidentiary hearing. These decisions are quasi-judicial due to the fact judgment and discretion is used in applying the standards for review. The purpose of evidentiary hearings is to gather competent, relevant, and factual evidence on the application, not to solicit broad public opinion. All who participate must be sworn in to provide factual testimony and relevant evidence only, and limit repetitious testimony. Staff acts as the initial witness by presenting basic information and background on the request and enters staff exhibits into the record. The applicant and other witnesses will be sworn in and are able to provide factual testimony on the application to the board. Board members listen, ask relevant questions, assess the credibility of all testimony, remain impartial, and vote on the case. At the conclusion of the hearing, the board shall make its decision based on the evidence submitted and testimony given while adopting findings of facts on all standards. So this public hearing was noticed in accordance with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance in North Carolina General Statute 160D-406. And you see here is a map of the area, and the project area is in the hatched area, and the red are the adjoining properties. This request is before the Board of Adjustments because the applicant requests to increase the fence height from the PDO maximum of 6 feet to 8 feet along Highway 5. Section 9.13C of the Pinehurst PDO states fences and walls in non-residential zoning districts and/or on non-residential properties, except in the RD zoning district. Fences and walls or similar structures not over 6 feet in height may project into any required setback. Pinehurst Resort requests a variance to modify the fence along Highway 5, which surrounds the hotel pool and the hotel villas. The resort would like to increase the fence height to 8 feet with the interspersed brick columns 9 feet 8 inches. So the maximum will be not the 8 feet. The columns will be the 9 feet 8 inches will be the highest height. Pinehurst Resorts also requests varying the fence design standards provided in section 9.13D 1 through 7 of the Village of Pinehurst PDO by adding specific trim to the top of the fence. Right here is the project area, and as you can see, the fence runs from the pool at the Carolina Hotel on McLean, adjacent to McLean Road, all the way down Highway 5 and wraps around onto Ritter Road for a short little section to the furthest south villa. That's a picture of the existing fence right now. This is a concept of what the fence would look like, and you can see this is the 8-foot section right here with the specific design on it and the columns that are up to 9 feet 8 inches. This is the inspiration for the design on the top of the fence. That's above the Villager Deli in the middle of the village. Background of the property, the subject property was deeded from Pinehurst Inc. to the Resorts of Pinehurst on February 15th, 1985. The subject property is approximately 991,425.6 square feet in area, or plus or minus 22.76 acres, which complies with the minimum lot size requirement of 1 acre for the hotel zoning district. Single-family and some multi-family dwellings are located adjacent to the subject property. The lot contains the Pinehurst Resort, along with several supporting structures. Again, here's an aerial photography map of the area, and the fence would run along Highway 5, which is right here where I have the cursor. Your standards of review. The Board of Adjustment shall not grant a variance unless and until it makes findings that all of the following standards of review have been met. Unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. It shall not be necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of a variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance shall not be regarded as a self-created hardship. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. After conducting the public hearing, the Zoning Board of Adjustment may have the authority to subpoena witnesses and may request additional information, continue the public hearing on the requested variance, grant the requested variance, deny the requested variance, grant the requested variance with conditions. In granting any variance, the Board of Adjustments may attach appropriate conditions, provided that the conditions are reasonably related. Any decision to grant or deny the request shall be accompanied by findings of fact stating the reason why the request meets or does not meet each standard of review. Granting of any variance request requires a concurring vote of 4 out of 5. Staff does not offer recommendations on variance requests, as decisions are to be based solely on the testimony and evidence presented at the quasi-judicial hearing. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report with attachments and exhibits, a presentation, and the application and applicant's materials and exhibits. And that's it for my part.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff?
The only question I would have is there any precedence within the village, because I don't go around measuring fences, that there are 8-foot fences or 9 feet, 8-inch fences, or would this be the only one? I know that may be a hard question to ask. I was just,
I don't think staff would be able to provide anything definitive in that nature. What I could attest to is that there are applications where fencing, as is broadly defined, as Michael went over in one of the early slides, that maybe do not project into the building setback, that are well over 6 feet in height. Again, but not projecting into the setback. They're well within the building footprint itself, where that height limitation of 6 feet does not apply. So are there fences or walls or other similar structures over 6 feet in height in the village's jurisdiction? Without a doubt. I have no definitive information on how many of those actually may or may not project into the setbacks.
okay, thank you.
And can I ask a question? Isn't there some rule about not having front yard fences? Because I know when I wanted to do mine, I was not allowed to do that.
Fences are allowed in the front yard, but there is a height limitation on a fence in the front yard.
Well, I was going by the fence that was allowed, but it was not allowed in the front yard.
So there are different regulations based on residential properties or non-residential properties. So residential,
do whatever.
residential properties have a shorter height restriction.
So the design standards for a residential property versus a non-residential property inside of our PDO, are they the same? None, okay, all right.
Questions? I've got one or two, but anybody else on the board? Okay, and these aren't real huge issues, but the actions the zoning board of adjustment said you had 5 listed, and I believe the 160D lists 6, and the 6th one was there, or no, the PDO lists 6, and I think 160D does too. Under PDO 1, or 5.1.4C3, the additional public hearing is also an option, I believe the board has, unless there was a reason it was intentionally left out.
In order to solicit more evidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be, it just says if we don't have enough, we can continue it on to an additional public hearing.
It kind of expands from point number 2 or option number 2 here on the
Yeah.
slide.
So I just wondered if that was intentionally not there or just was an overlook is always my question.
Not intentional.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Jeremy, I would like to clarify the question that you asked. The regulations do differ from residential and non-residential fences as it relates to some requirements. Other requirements are synonymous with both residential and non-residential, mainly the type of fencing or the design of fencing are typically the same for residential and non-residential, and I think that's important because that is part of the request before the board tonight. The height and where they can project into what setbacks are different between the two. So I hope that clarifies things
Okay. So
slightly.
I found it in the PDO. I'll educate myself, and if the board has any other questions.
We've got it pulled up.
Yeah, thanks.
Your question?
Sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
I
Comments?
think this is a question for the applicant, but I'll just confirm I didn't miss it. there's nothing in the staff report about where the fence is in relation to the setback, correct? Now, where the existing fence is in relation to the setback.
That's correct.
I don't have any more questions.
And just so the board is aware, so you have this dimensional standard in your mind while you're listening. Again, that property is zone H or hotel. So the front setback is 40 feet, side setback is 20 as it relates to this request. So those are your two dimensional criteria you're looking at about projecting into such setback.
Anything else? Okay. We'll add the staff report to the record in this matter. Okay. Next portion of this is to do with the presentation from the applicant. So if you please, whoever going to start out, come up to the front. Remain standing, please. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name.
Bob Counts.
Calvin Berkeley.
Okay, please have a seat. I think you wanted to talk to him for a second? Okay. Okay. Okay, who goes first?
You have the presentation.
Yeah, I'm going to go first.
Okay,
As I mentioned, Bob Kuntz with Kuntz Jones Design, 150 South Page Street in Southern Pines. We're a land planning and landscape architecture firm. I've been a landscape architect, land planner for over 25 years, over 28 years now. And so we've been, it's been requested by the resort. We've worked with them on new fence design. And we're here tonight to make a request to increase the height, as Michael stated. So what I'd like to do is just walk through a few slides. Michael presented them a little bit. I'm going to talk about them in a little more detail. And then I'd like to walk through each of the criteria and how we feel that each of those criteria are being addressed, since this is a unique situation here. So, as Michael mentioned, this is the location of the existing fence and the proposed fence. Essentially, it would just be taking down the existing fence and putting this fence back in place. The current fence is a shadow box fence at 6 feet in height, and it is in need of repair and replacement at this point. So rather than coming back with something exactly like this fence, the resort wanted to do something a little more decorative that fits with the design scheme of the resort, as well as increase the height based on increased noise along Highway 5. Over the years, in looking at the traffic data, over the last 20 years, the traffic on Highway 5 has increased by 40%. Based on the NCDOT data, and I think all of us living here, we can understand it's probably going to continue to increase. So that is going back to the site plan or the aerial photograph. You can see the proximity of the pool location and the large event lawn and how close those are to Highway 5, and then also the villas that you see coming off of Ritter Road. On that side, they are also, very close to Highway 5. The increased noise is becoming a concern for the resort. So with that, they would like to increase the height to 8 feet with columns that are 9 feet 8 inches, masonry columns. We also have included a detail since it is an 8-foot high fence, wanting to break up the scale of that fence rather than just having it straight 8 feet tall, having a detail and trim piece at the top that would break up that height. And that is actually about a 2 to 2.5 foot trim piece across the top. So everything above 6 inches or 6 feet would have that trim detail.
That trim detail is inspired by the Villager Deli and the old Pinehurst department store. And the columns are inspired by the existing columns at the main entrance of the resort. Those columns at the entrance, those are 12 feet tall. They're actually 12 feet 2 inches tall. So they're very significant columns. And it's a much broader, wider column than is being proposed for the fencing. We think this would be a really nice look going down Highway 5 and become a little more decorative with the resort, as well as provide the increased noise barrier. So with that, I'd like to just walk through each of the criteria that Michael mentioned. The first criteria is about unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. Again, with the noise issues and the noise-related issues along Highway 5, the additional 2 feet will help with that, as well as going to the solid fence as opposed to the shadow box as it exists today. And the trim detail at the top is also, as I mentioned, is also serving to break up that height and to have it in a more, so it doesn't feel as tall as the 8 feet. B, in the UDO and the PDO is the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. This is the only hotel zone property on Highway 5. It's one of the few hotel zone properties in the village. It's also a location where there are a lot of special events and pools and lots of lodging there. So we feel that it's not, it is an individual, it is specific to this property and is not really repetitive across the village. The hardship, item C, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. Can't control the traffic, so it's something that's just happened over a long period of time and is becoming a growing concern. And item D, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. I don't feel that there are any, it's really a result of the increased traffic. It really isn't something that would, there's not a public safety concern with the increased fence height. We don't see any safety-related issues. So those are our points regarding the criteria for approval of the variance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Ms. Calvin has something to add.
I mean, I did, speaking with our sales teams, we do get feedback from guests about some of the noise in evenings when they're out there. So we have gotten some feedback from them, and we were reacting to some of that. So.
Question that I mentioned earlier, do you know inside of the setback where the existing fence falls?
I don't have that exact number.
It appears to be, I mean, it's obviously outside of the right-of-way, but
On the back side of the setback, we're not sure if it is in the setback, but the setback's 20 feet there, right? So
appears to meander some, even down 5. It's not maybe consistent.
How thick is this thing? I mean, we look at it, I mean, is it a foot thick, 2 foot thick, 10 foot thick, like the front?
yeah, the fence, the posts are 6x6s.
Okay,
So the posts are 6x6s, so the fence would be along that width. It's not a 2x4, it'd be a 1x material. So.
okay. I didn't see a dimension, so I was just asking as to the bulk of it, if you would.
I think it would be beneficial to have the dimensions of the brick columns.
Did Bob just say 6 feet by 6 feet, the columns, 6 feet by?
No,
Okay.
the wooden posts,
6 inches.
yeah, they are 6
Okay.
inch by 6 inch columns.
Thought you were, the mason area, I was like, wow, that's pretty massive.
No, this would be huge. Gosh, it would be nice to have that dimension might have it on my laptop. They're 9 feet, 8 inches. I mean, I could guess that it's about 3 feet wide, 2.5 to 3 feet wide. That column, something like this. I don't.
So
have
they're
the exact
square?
measure. Yes, they would be square. Very much like the column that you see there that's at the front of the resort.
Not as wide.
It's the same detail, it's just not as wide and not as tall as that column.
Dimensions aren't like that.
Yes.
Maybe a question for staff. However, I'll ask this to you two. If a condition is needed detailing your design in the approval of this, being that we held you to this design that you are presenting to us today, would that be agreeable to you?
It would be. We still have to go through the Historic District Commission
Sure.
regardless.
Okay,
But
that's a good note.
yes.
Okay.
yes.
And that's in the report, I believe, too, that you're still, you mentioned you had to go through that.
That's correct. That's correct.
So the variance is being requested for the location within the setback, but it is also for the fence type, correct?
The
Because,
detail at the top, the solid, if it didn't have the detail at the top,
right.
it would be a solid fence, which is permitted by the PDO.
It had, so as I read the PDO, it requires a spacing between the slats. So the slats abutting each other itself would be a variance from the fence details in the PDO?
No, I think there are 3 different types of fences that you can utilize. One is the shadow box, one is a picket fence, and then there's also the provision for a solid fence, which this would be a solid fence.
So that leads to one of my questions. So the sound being the issue from traffic, and you've got stone and brick both allowed in the PDO. I didn't see solid wood as a type. Were other material types considered that wouldn't be a variance from the fence types?
No.
Got one question, Bob. I may have more, but one for now. Was there any, the way you would test sound? I mean, if you did, similar to what Matt said, if you used a denser material, something that would be more traditionally used to mitigate road noise, and you left it at 6, would that achieve, an expert testing that, your sound mitigation at whatever decibel range you're trying to reach? So you'd have a thicker, maybe masonry or something that is synthetic that they use on highways. You can get it any design you want, probably make it look very similar to this. Keep it at 6 feet, but still get all that tire noise, that road noise mitigated. Was there any alternative that was looked at?
We didn't. We did talk about masonry. 'Cause obviously, masonry blocks sound better than wood, but we thought that getting the extra 2 feet, if you're looking at the angles, it helps block some of that noise going up and out. But I think the 8 feet, we didn't do the decibel studies or anything like that.
Okay.
But
So you think at 8 feet, without a study, would mitigate the sound continuation or the decibel desire reach or range?
yeah, we feel like it would take out that additional 2 feet that would block. In the current fence that's there is a shadow box fence with gaps in it, and the solid fence we feel would be substantially better than having those gaps. And then the masonry columns will help as well.
That 1-inch thick slats? Okay. How well does 1-inch slats stop noise? Do we know that?
I don't know the answer.
And the noise is from customers going to the club.
Yep, exactly.
I said it's a good thing. Thank you.
I have some questions. Why would you paint this fence white and make it even more intrusive into the landscape? It's natural now, and that was enough to have to deal with. you're opening the door to other fences, other businesses wanting to do this. So I want to point that out to the board. You're ruining the view of the village by going down a highway with this huge 8-foot fence. The village was created to be a landscape open for everyone to enjoy. I'm sorry if your guests are complaining about the traffic noise. However, we live here all year as residents, and we contribute quite a bit to the resort ourselves. And I think we are being pushed upon something that we are not happy with or even want to consider.
Yeah.
I don't know how relevant that is,
Well, it
Sonia.
is relevant because we don't have fences like that in Pinehurst, not 8-foot fences.
That's a question
That's
of,
opening a whole new can of worms on fences, right?
Well, there's two issues I hear you saying, and I just want to check and make sure that I understand. One is the 8-foot, which is a dimensional issue, which is, I think, clear an issue. The other part of it is I don't like it, and I don't like it is not something that comes into a quasi-judicial hearing. So it kind of,
But do they have the right to paint it white when it's natural now? Just go ahead. and just-
they have the
that my
right to
question?
request anything.
Okay.
Whether we approve it or not is the other issue.
Can I ask for a recess?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask for a recess?
Sure. How long
5
do we
minutes.
need?
5
5-minute
minutes.
recess, please. Thank you. Everybody ready to start again?
Ready?
Okay. I just want to go back and make sure I understand what you were saying. You know, this is we review it against the standards. Things such as, I don't like it, it's somebody else, is a legislative issue, and that's outside the purview of this. I mean, I understand your feelings, and I'm not trying to say what you say is right or wrong, but it's outside the purview of this thing, so we cannot go down those trails of that. It has to be there. They have a right to present what they want to present. It's a technical review, it's not a legislative review. Okay? Does that answer your question or your concern? All right, good, thank you. So anybody else with a question?
I have one more question for the applicant. Between where the fence is now and what would be outside of the setback, do you have any information about, about that? When I think about, the language of hardship in strict application of the ordinance, which is basically to a new fence or to replacing the fence, moving it outside of the setback. Any information on like how that would be hardship in that way?
I do not. We would need to measure that. I didn't even consider that as we were designing.
Okay. And we'll maybe talk about it in discussion, but that may be, I don't know if that's additional information that, I think it would be helpful to me as I'm thinking about really unnecessary hardship. I think that would document that a little better, but we'll consider that in our recommendation.
Question, so what's the concern of the hardship from your standpoint?
Well, so for a necessary hardship, strict application of the ordinance is, okay, we want to go to 8 feet, and so then you move it out of the setback, so you move it 10 feet from where it is, say, whatever that distance is, and then you erect the new fence. So what's the hardship associated with that? And you would probably support that item.
Thanks, that was for my clarification.
Does that mean that if you set it back further into the property, what the hardship would be? Okay,
That's right.
okay.
I guess what I'm struggling with is, you did mention that some of the guests there mentioned the noise, but I guess I was trying to put like almost to quantify it, like, okay, what noise, what decibel range are you trying to achieve? And then what product mitigates the noise to achieve that? I guess that's where, Matt brings up hardship, and I kind of think about it, okay, what is the hardship? Okay, well, I need to achieve this standard, of 10. We're currently at 20. This fence is gonna mitigate me to 10. I guess, to me, it's just hard to, yeah, it's noisy, we know that, but what are you trying to get to? And then, what design, there's a lot of people study, how sound penetrates, how far, and how do you mask it? I know in business I'm associated with, they have, ways to do that. And I don't know, I like your fence, it looks good. I don't know about putting a quarter-mile fence down, another fence down Highway 5 would look good. But, I just don't understand what sound level you guys are trying to achieve, and that's where I've got issues with it. And it goes back to Matt's point with hardship. I don't think you've defined your hardship.
Do you have any traffic data that would detail the increase that would result in the increased noise level? I know it's a given, right? So
Right, we have the numbers, but we don't have the decibel.
Anything to give today, any sort of number
We don't have that
increases or
today.
anything? Okay.
Yeah, we don't have that today.
Okay. Sure. Yes, ma'am. I have another question too, if you don't mind. Okay.
Want to go back again? You're walking up against the well, that's fine, but again, when you bring in, you live there, you've got to stay out of those things. Okay.
But I'm saying, since he doesn't have the answer to.
Oh, Matt. His microphone, yeah, microphone.
Right.
There are no-
Since we don't have any data, I was just saying, maybe we need to get that data to establish that.
And then again, I think the point Tom's trying to make is that we've established that there is no data
Right.
and the
And
board
that's
can't-
fine. I have no issue with establishing that. But when you bring in, well, I live there too, that's not, that gets outside the realm of looking at it from a purely straight point of view, from quasi judicial point of view. So you
But we
can't-
are supposed to look at properties, so if you've seen that yourself, what it is at night, then you should be able to address that, correct? Or not? I mean, isn't that our job to go look at things? I mean, I'm
Well,
just
it's
asking.
gonna- can go,
Can I ask a question just relative to the case?
we need
Okay.
to get through this first, and then I'll get
Okay.
right back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I just want a clarification.
Yeah, I understand. When you can't bring in issues of I live there, I did this, I did that. You may live there, and if you know those as facts, the same facts they do, then you can express the facts and figures to it. But sitting there and saying, well, I live there is not something we can allow into the record. I mean, you're welcome to say it's free speech,
But, I mean,
but
I don't live right there, but I do,
do you understand my point? When you bring in personal
Right.
issues,
okay. But
then we go beyond what we can do here. That's my point. So just ask all the questions you want about data, about those kinds of things, but you can't bring into that, I live here, I do this, and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so can we bring it up as I went to see the site and this is what I
Already
noticed?
brought, okay, well,
Is
you,
that, I mean, is that how you want it
if it's
stated?
brought up yet.
Sorry, Lori, I had mine on mute too. So I'll start over again. The point is that it's not a board member's role or responsibility to produce. You may very well have acute sense of what's happening there, but it's not your job to present that. That is only their job, and your job is to,
Evaluate what they say.
yeah, or lack of, as
Yeah.
you have pointed out.
Lack of, okay. Okay,
If you want a piece of data, they don't have it, that's one thing.
okay.
You want a piece of data and you don't have it because you live next door, and you use that as a reason for asking the question,
I
that's
don't
another
live-
thing.
I don't live next door.
Okay.
But I would like to see
I
the
use that as an
data.
example. Okay. Now, you have some more questions, please.
Now, I do believe sometimes that there are facts within context and that there are facts within some subjectivity that allows us to have these type of conversations. But at the end of the day, I think when we look at our facts and we make our decision at the end, I think those have to be factual. And so my question really has to do a little bit of that context. That's why I wanted to state that. Calvin, I think you're best to answer this. Can you give us some sort of idea? You've gone through a lot of renovations, okay? And why are you going through those renovations at the resort?
To improve the experience for our guests.
Okay, and we have a large event coming,
We do have a large event coming.
okay? And what is that event, and can you tell me?
Yeah, for the U.S. Open, I mean, there's no question that we're doing a lot of improvements to the area and the property. And, yeah, we are looking at replacing this fence. It's in, as Bob had pointed out, it's in disrepair. We're just looking at what we put it back with and what also solves issues that have been brought to our attention.
Not to dig into the money side of it, can you give me an idea of how many millions of dollars of renovation, just roughly? I mean, we ain't talking about a little sum, right?
Each year, or,
Well, this just recently.
I mean, we're in the $40+ million this year.
Talk about that design scheme that you have overall for these renovations, which equate to $40 million. Would you consider that design scheme to be low-end, middle, luxury?
High-end.
Okay, and why does it need to be high-end?
Our clientele and just kind of representing, us, the village, at the highest level.
Okay. Anything as you and Bob have reviewed our current design standards, which you were directed to do so inside of our PDO, this is your opinion, probably, but When you reviewed those design standards, were there any of those design standards which were on par with your other renovations that you've done for the large event?
I don't know how to answer that.
So,
I guess I think, looking at the fence details, they're pretty basic and what's permitted with shadow box fences, and it's really sort of, historically, it's connected, but in the new context of what the resort is, I'm not sure that, and it's an upgrade to facilities and an upgrade to the quality of the fence, so that.
how many years have you been doing this? Can you give me some qualifications?
As a landscape architect, I was licensed and I went to school at the University of Kentucky and I graduated in 1994. And I've been a licensed landscape architect since 2001, so.
I think I've asked you that probably 5 times in over the last few
Yeah, you have.
So I'm sorry,
That's okay.
but you're well qualified to make that assumption that it's basic, is that right?
Yes.
That the design standards. were.
Yes.
And so we always focus on hardship, and I'm sorry if I'm taking up. So we always focus on hardship because that's number one. And so you've labeled the hardship as traffic related and traffic noise related. And I don't lead you, but our current design standards, the way they are, as basic in your terms, it seems that they don't allow you to actually match your design standards of your resort as all.
I would say that's correct, yes.
I've definitely led you there, but I think, because in my mind, I'm always hardship driven, and without the data of the increased traffic, we don't have a lot, really. So but in my mind also, some of the hardship could be driven in design and scale and some of the context there, so.
I would agree with that. And I think also like our column details and some of those things, in looking at, they're taken from other areas of the resort and of the village. So there's not the flexibility in the sign ordinance and the text to allow you to do that, those trim details that just add to it and get to that next level.
Can't create the hardship for you, so absent that data. Thank you.
Correct.
So, Chair, I have a couple thoughts. I'm kind of in a position, while I, appreciate the timeline and the sensitivity of schedule of things happening next year. I think today, I want to ask for more information, is where I am, on two pieces. One, demonstration of the hardship if the new fence would be constructed outside of the 20-foot setback on the side. And actually, I believe with that turn, we're subject to the 40-foot setback on Ritter, because that would be the front property on that short little segment. Double check me on that. And then secondly, information on why the proposed fence design, specifically material in the section, is used as opposed to those included in the PDO. I guess, so that would be the hardship related to that material and fence detail type. So again, not saying that if that's presented, then I'm ready to go one way or the other, but that information I think is needed to make a full decision for me.
If anybody on the board feels otherwise, I think we're looking for, the big picture is we're looking for more details into what's going on before we make a decision. Is that correct? Is that the gist of it, Paul?
I'd be concerned that if it's not, evaluated, the fence may go in and may not mitigate what they're trying to achieve. Would be,
More data and more.
Yeah.
More information then. Is that
Ye-
a valid
yes.
statement on your part?
Yeah.
Would that be?
You're talking about, though, related to sound, if there was a way to
yeah, I mean,
demonstrate the impact of that and how.
oh, does this design achieve what they're trying to do?
So when we think about hardship and we think about strict application of the ordinance, in this case, in this situation, if we provide strict application of that ordinance is undue hardship resulting. And I think if we've concluded that ultimately there is hardship, or we just want proof of the hardship, maybe that's my question, and I think, is that,
I think I understand. Well, maybe the proof, the additional information would demonstrate if there is a hardship and what that is, because, I mean, I'm looking at the first two, particularly not just unnecessary hardship, but also that it's peculiar to that property.
Sure.
Obviously, the use of that property is distinct, but the proximity of that property to what's causing the issue, which is traffic, is not. So that's, in my mind, that could go either way, but I think there's what is the hardship,
that's,
to build it outside the setback? I don't see that. I think it's quantifiable, and that's what I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, but if you don't have a metric, then any lot beside a road, you could say you have a hardship because of noise, right? I mean, that would be my concern. I think it opens up, anyone can say, hey, I need to build an 8-foot fence. I'm not making light of it, because there's, road noise. I think you have to demonstrate how there is an impact.
Well, I guess I'm saying it doesn't really push back on this, but the sound with the vehicles doesn't necessarily matter in terms of these four conditions.
I would agree with you.
He doesn't necessarily have to prove that the traffic is the issue to request a variance from the fence. But if he can show that, he wants, they want, the applicant is seeking to put a larger fence in, and they want to do that in this location, and they can't do it in the preferred location, and they can demonstrate that that would be hardship in that location, then that would meet the requirements for a variance, correct?
So without getting too specific to this case and what this board may ultimately decide until which point in time you make your findings, maybe it's just fair to generalize what I feel like I'm hearing from the board, and so the applicants can hear that too, is that the board seems to be thirsty or seeking additional facts on how is an unnecessary hardship resulting on this property. Two, maybe what other conditions are specifically peculiar to this property, so factual or data to back that up. And again, the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance kind of gets back to backing up the design, which could be not just the ornamental design of the property, but the location. And two, if there could be some supporting data to show that this request, if found to be a hardship because of backed up data, there is supporting data there that shows that this type of application does in fact reduce these type of impacts that are causing a hardship. Is that a
Yeah.
good way to summarize?
Yeah, so not filling in the blank, but if, for instance, if there was a way to say at typical vehicle height, sound that's transmitted is,
The engineer in the room has spoken.
But then it wouldn't matter what the sound level is, it would just matter what the typical.
Okay, to me, it sounds like we're looking for additional data and information is what the issue.
Yep.
So it kind of puts us in a position as far as this goes. If you want to apply additional information that you don't have tonight, then we can recess this and come back at a later date, and we can work at the date if that's so what you choose to do, and then go do that. What we can't do is close out the public hearing at this point. So the public hearing, in the intent, my thought, would remain open, and what we're going to do is adjourn this matter to a date certain in the future, and hopefully you can provide some additional information based on the information you've been given by the board tonight. Is that what you would like to do? I'm not trying to put
Yes.
words in your mouth.
That's what we would like to do.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, I want to make a statement too. I mean, I think time is of the essence, right? I mean, there is a big event happening in June of next year.
Yeah.
this may have already been answered, but were you planning on accomplishing this before June of next year? Because I know the club has come here with a hotel and a parking garage and a bunch of other stuff, but, is this time sensitive that it needs to, and everybody wants the right appearance, Was this going to be done before June of next year?
Yes and no. A lot of it depended on how this goes. But the intent is that we would like to, but it doesn't mean that we have to.
Okay.
Doing it right is more important to us in the long term.
I mean, this was not on your critical task list before the next US Open.
It was a
Enhancing, not critical.
nice to have, not a must have.
Okay, no, thank you, fair.
Okay?
So
Manager.
I would recommend the board, again, and if it looks like where I think this may be going this evening, that the terminology would be, if we hand you these handy-dandy motion templates, one thing would be that, that I would move to continue the evidentiary hearing to
That
this
particular thing.
date, this time, this
What I said,
location.
date certain.
And maybe before that the floor was open for that motion, make sure that
The date
there's
works
a
for the
time
applicant.
works in order to maybe
That was-
gather some of this data.
Yeah, that was going to be my
'Cause
path.
some of
yes.
this data might be easier to obtain, some might take a little longer, so just make sure calendars can sync.
Yep.
And I would recommend to make sure it's a date where these 5 can be here. Circumstances happen, something might need a substitute, but, staff can work with other board members to make sure they're brought up so they can act on that, but I would prefer it to be this 5.
And that was where I was headed. That's why I said a date certain, and then we're going to sit here and talk about what that date certain is that matches everybody's agenda as close as we can. That's my thought process, so that we can come back, and they need to be here. They heard what they heard tonight, so those people need to be here. We need to be here, and I think that's the case, so. But that's where I was headed, yes. Okay, so that coming up, how soon do we want to go back at it? Anybody going out of town?
Well, I
to
would
the
ask
next-
Bob when he could be prepared.
Well, we'll get
Yeah,
to that
okay.
too, but I just wanted,
Okay.
from our point of view, is there some roadblock that we're having here? Somebody's going out of town on vacation or something that we aren't sure? Or is it generally open for us?
I'd stay away from the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, it won't be between Christmas and New Year's, I will assure you of that.
Thank you.
26th?
It will probably, huh?
With this stuff, maybe we should just do it at the January 4th
Well,
meeting.
that might be the answer. And now I'm going back to them and ask the same questions, but that's where I'm looking for. So you've heard what kind of data and stuff we're looking for. Minutes, weeks, months, years, how far down the road can we go?
I think you just mentioned the January 4th meeting. I think we could have the data by January 4th.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
that would be, I think, for all of us, is anybody that at this moment knows they can't be here out of the 5 of us, they can't be here on January 4th? Understand that things could change, but. Okay, so we'll recess it to January,
You need a motion?
huh?
You need a motion?
Yes, we need a motion.
I move to continue the public hearing until January 24th, 2024, following the regularly scheduled Planning and Zoning Board meeting, to allow the applicant to gather more information.
I'll second that.
Is it-
Motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Oh, wait a minute, we got
Was that the 4th or the 24th?
The 4th.
Fourth.
The 4th.
Of
okay.
yeah,
2024.
no, of
Yeah.
2024.
Okay.
No, we're not coming in on the 24th, I'll assure you of that.
Just so it's clear, in this building, in this room.
Yes, and it'll be in this building, in this room, same place, just a different date. Start immediately after the board, the planning and zoning, so it may be, we don't know what they're gonna have for sure. They may have to go through theirs, then we'll come back to do this one as we have in the back, just to make it clear to everybody, so that we're there. Any other questions about date, time, and place? The motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's passed. Okay, thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to adjourn the meeting? The public hearing's open, but we need to adjourn the regular. Right.
Let's do this. How about a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Okay.
Already recessed the public hearing, and we are now in a regular scheduled meeting. Is that correct? Okay, we've gone through that procedure? Okay.
So we
all right.
can
So we
make
can
an
just adjourn this
adjourn,
meeting.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Yeah, just one more for clarity.
Cannot close
The public
public
hearing.
hearing,
It's continued.
so we cannot get to
Okay,
the back to the other. I mean, we can recess the public hearing,
which we've done.
which would be a slightly different motion, and then go ahead and adjourn the meeting in general from that.
Well, we have to adjourn it or else we can't leave.
I agree,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying, so I think
Yeah.
the motion needs to be, to adjourn
Yep.
the
The regular,
public hearing,
no.
recess and continue the public hearing, and then we can go off and close it.
We did, but we did that.
We are recessed.
Then we can make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make my motion again to adjourn.
Second.
Second, motion to adjourn, it's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.